hold on, I don't understand your exams without the exam review.
Oh, okay.
Without this little
My hints are that cryptic.
They really are. Well, this one's not bad, but some of them are pretty cryptic.
Well, hence why, I do this. So, all right, let's see what we got here. So again, it's just chapters 3 and 4. And yes, there are multiple hints that are identical in here because I have multiple questions about various things.
It makes me nervous when you do that. There's one that has there's a few that have
like the USCR.
Oh my god.
Oh, I am gonna hammer that stuff so much on this test. It's not even funny. Anyway, first one: distinguish between perceptual and latent learning. This is an application question. So it basically is going to describe a situation and ask you what kind of learning is going on. So make sure you know what at least those two are. That'll at least narrow down the options for you. Let's see. Number 2, habituation versus sensitization. Oh, this is going to ask you to pick out the option that is either an example of habituation or sensitization. So again, make sure you know what the difference is between those things. Let's see, third one. Oh, habituation versus sensitization again. Make sure you know what happens when you repeatedly present a loud noise to a rat. What does that do to it? It's an acoustic startle response.
Wait, what did you just say?
What does it do to the rat's acoustic startle response? How does it change? All right. Response to a stimulus that could carry risks.
I have a question on this one because I have put an answer, but I don't know who's right. Can I say it?
Yeah.
Emotional?
No.
Emotionally motive response?
Think about what 2 terms we've been throwing around for the last few questions.
Oh, is this sensitization?
No, habituation,
Oh, wow.
right? Because if you stop responding to something in the environment, that could potentially be dangerous to you.
I guess habituation does make sense.
Okay.
So.
And is it just the one?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Number 5. What is dishabituation? All right. So this one gives you an example of doing this, repeatedly playing something to a rat, and wants to know of the options, which option would demonstrate dishabituation occurring. Okay, 6. No, 7. What on earth is with my numbering here? No, 6. I'm on 6. Good grief. I need a nap. Anyway, results in fast habituation versus long-lasting habituation. And this is one of those fun questions that I get a 2 for 1 on. But it has to do with how the animal is exposed to the stimulus.
So it has nothing to do with fast habituation, has a quick onset, short duration type thing?
No, it has to do with how you can get it. How can you achieve fast habituation versus long lasting? And it has to do with the way that you expose the animal to the stimuli. Okay? And you think about it, these are along the same lines as when we tell you not to cram for exams because that doesn't last very long, versus if you take and study over the course of time, it tends to stick. So if you know what those two terms are that go with those, I just described what they are. Okay, 7, skin conductance and sensitization. Okay, so this one is going to ask you to pick out from the examples which one would reveal sensitization based on that skin conductance change. Which part? Okay, so it's going to ask you to pick out which of the examples, so like A through D, would be the skin conductance response if sensitization had occurred. All right, number 8, models of sensitization and habituation. We talked about 2 models when we were talking about that stuff. Make sure you know the difference between them, because this is more of a definitional type question. So which is followed immediately by number 9, that describes a situation and wants to know which of the 2 theories applies. Let's see, number 10, novel item recognition task. Well, you might want to know what someone would do if they thought a stimulus was familiar. How would they behave in that task? Yeah, if it's familiar, how would they behave in that task? But think about the novel item recognition task. There was an example in the book, I think it was with a rat, and it had some objects in its cage. Yeah, essentially they won't spend as much time with the familiar one, right?
So they'll spend more time.
No, they'll spend more time looking at a novel one.
A new one, is that the answer? They like the new one because the new one they haven't seen. The familiar one they've already known.
Actually, it involves both types of stimuli. The answer does. What it would do for as far as the familiar, what it would do as far as the novel.
Oh,
okay. All right. 11. What is familiarity? That's a definition. All right. Number 12. Priming and the word stem completion task. Well, what tends to happen in that situation? If you are primed with, I show you a picture of, I don't know, a moth, and then later on I give you the letters M-O-T and ask you to complete the word, you're probably not going to give me moat, right? Because you'd seen something recently that tended to bias you're responding in the future.
Oh.
Okay?
So it's basically going to ask like is the question kind of surrounded towards like the word stem part of it? Like, oh, what's an example?
Well,
Why?
what are people most likely to do in that task if, say, that they had seen something recently?
So it's like predisposition.
Yeah, it does. It tends to predispose you to certain responses. Because, I don't know, those parts of your brain, your memory and whatnot are warmed up as opposed to other parts. It's a big giant web of a mess up there. All right, where are we at? 13. Let's see. Distinguish between perceptual and latent learning. This one's going to ask you to pick out an example of one of those two.
I still don't really understand what it means. We had that on the last exam too.
Well, latent learning, essentially what that means is it's learning that is dormant, it's lying dormant. You don't see evidence of it until you put a reward out there. You give a motivation of some sort, a motivator. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh yeah, I guess they did figure out how to get around the maze.
So latent learning is like the one where on the last exam, if I remember right, you don't see a result until later on, like when you give the reward or whatever.
Yeah. It's so you put the rat in there, you let it wander around, but you don't put anything in the box for the first few times you do that. And then you put something in the goal box, and next thing you know, your rat is a genius. Yes.
How do you relate it to like the kids stuff, like the children?
I know we've talked about this in developmental.
Well, one of the ways I think about it in terms of adults is the fact that, you know, as you wander around in an environment, even if you've never actually like used the restroom, say, on the main floor in the library, you know where it is.
Oh, okay.
So if you had to go, you would.
Okay, that's pretty.
All right. Because you learn where it was without being rewarded or reinforced for learning where it was.
Okay, I'm gonna think of it like that actually. It's relatable.
Oh gosh. Okay, where am I at? Where 14? Tolman and Hansik found. Wow. Speaking of what I was just talking about with the rats in the maze, their experiment where they had the one group of rats that just explored the maze for like several days, and then all of a sudden they put a treat in there, and they were actually making fewer errors than the group that had been getting treats in the goal box all along.
Do you need to know like what type of example of learning it was, or like?
It just asked what they found in that study. So just basically knowing that when they started rewarding the rats, I think it was like 11 days into the experiment, they showed that they knew their way around. They'd learned it. Let's see, 15, disrupts wasp navigation. What did they do to mess with that poor wasp? There's a picture. Well, basically what they did is that they moved, what was the circle of pine cones from around where the nest was in the ground to another location, and the poor wasp, who had been off doing its thing, comes back and can't find the nest because it goes to the circle of pine cones. And it's like, where's the nest? Where's the nest? Yeah. Yeah, so basically they use landmarks to figure out where they're at to navigate. What's that?
No, that's just
What?
nothing, I'm just
Oh,
talking.
okay. All right, where am I at? Oh boy. A bunch of questions on habituation and sensitization and aplesia. Let's see. I would make sure that you know what happens in terms of the glutamate released by the sensory neuron. Definitely in the case of habituation. This next one having to do with aplesia. What did they do to aplesia to show sensitization? How did they get sensitization to happen with aplesia? What did they do to it? They did two things to it. And the third one that deals with habituation and sensitization asks about which is homosynaptic and which is heterosynaptic. And of course, homosynaptics means it's just one synapse involved in the change. Heterosynaptic means it's multiple synapses. All right. Let's see, number 19, receptive field. Well, you should know what a receptive field is. Okay. That's about, yeah, as long as you know the definition, the question makes sense. Let's see, 20, tuning sensory neurons. If you have more sensory neurons tuned to a particular part of a stimulus, a feature of a stimulus, what does that allow you to do?
I'm sorry, I have just the first part. If you have more sensory neurons
That are tuned to a specific feature of a stimulus.
to a specific feature of the stimulus.
What are you able to do better with regard to that stimulus? What can you do better with regard to that stimulus if you have more neurons that are tuned?
Thank you.
Let's see, 21, demonstration of cortical plasticity.
Oh, I saw this one on the quizzes.
This is an example of cortical plasticity that we went over. So, and it has to do with vision, if that helps. See, 22, repeated presentation of two simultaneous touches on the finger. What happens? And it has to do with the cortical neurons. Cortical. Cortex. Oh, and then I've got two questions about place cells. Well, first off, the first question deals with the fact that they have preferences, and we call those by a particular term. We use a particular term for this preference.
It's like a definition, but like a verse.
Yeah, kind of. It's just one term about that refers to a place cell's preferred spot. And it has the word place in it. How's that? If that helps. All right, so the other place cell question, 24. This has to do with that experiment with the 3-arm maze and the card on the wall and what happened when they rotate the maze.
3-arm maze?
No, the 3-arm maze. It had like 3 shoots off of the center. They moved the card. Yeah, they moved the card, and so it went from like over here to over here. And if you looked at what the place cell was where the place cell was firing the most, it likewise shifted.
Wait, I'm so confused.
It was that little picture she had where it was like a little,
We had a top-down view, of the maze.
All I have written down is the experiment with the 3-arm maze moves the card. I'm confused.
Okay, so in that picture, wherever the person placed the card is where the most activity of that went to. So the rat went where the card was.
Yeah, so this place cell wasn't going crazy to a specific place. It was going crazy because it was relative to the location of the card, the landmark.
Are we saying card or cart?
Card.
C-A-R-D.
Sorry about that. See, that's what happens when I'm sitting down too. I don't enunciate very well. All right, where was I? All right, 25. Limits learning spatial layout. This has to do with the place fields. So what happens that would limit being able to learn a spatial layout with regard to place fields? I'm not sure how much more I could say about it without just like blurting the whole thing out. Let's see. 26. Why does learn non-use occur?
Can I say what I think it is?
Yeah.
When sensation is lost in a limb.
Yep. The cortex isn't getting sensory information coming to it. And because it's not getting sensory information, eventually, it's easier to use the limb that works. And then eventually you stop using the one that doesn't altogether. Which is, 27. Why does constraint-induced movement therapy work? It takes advantage of a property of the cortex.
Is that the answer?
Yeah, property is that.
I feel like that's the actual answer.
And we just need to know what the property of it is.
Yeah, what about the cortex makes it so that this actually works?
Can you repeat what you said after property?
A property of the cortex. What is it about the cortex that makes it so this will work?
I didn't know
Let's see, where are we? 28. Stressful events and depression. Well, let's see. This refers to work by Robert Post.
Robert who?
Post. P-O-S-T.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So basically describes what he found and then asks what it indicates. Let's see, 29. What is a sensory prosthesis? That's just a straight up definition question. Um, 30. How does a cochlear implant work? But what does it do?
It buzzes like part of the ear where I don't know, it sends signals to the ear and then
Yeah, it actually stimulates
Yeah.
the nerve.
Yeah. I don't know that much, but that's fine.
Because it doesn't work like a hearing aid where it would amplify sound. It's a different sort of sensation that is created because of directly stimulating.
It takes a while.
Yeah, it takes a bit to learn what those signals mean. So, let's see, 31. Demonstration of classical conditioning. Okay, so it basically gives you a bunch of options and wants to know which one is an example of classical conditioning. Oh, and then we have a whole bunch of US, UR, CS, CR questions. 32, you will want to make sure you know what each of those is, because I'm going to ask you what one of them is. Okay? 33. This one's going to give you an example and ask you to identify one of the four of those things.
What they are.
Yeah, so as long as you know what they are, you should be able to determine from the example that's given what I'm asking for. Let's see, and then 34 is another one of those. Oh, this is one of those 2 blank questions. And it has to do with something preparing an organism for an expected something.
That's what 34 is?
What's that?
So it's a fill in the blank.
It's 2 blanks.
And
it's one of these like US, UR, CS, CR things. What?
Is it the US getting ready for the CR?
No.
You can't use the CR.
Well, if you think about what happens with classical conditioning, it has to do with trying to figure out what stimuli would predict another stimulus following or coming along. So
You have to use the CR first before the US. Or is that reversed? I wrote in my notebook yesterday.
It would be the US preparing to get the CS.
other way around. Other way around. CS is what is sending you a signal that the US is coming and that you should be ready for it.
I remember the C was first.
The CS.
Please don't change that on the US.
Hmm?
Please don't change that blank on us.
Okay.
CS, I'm studying that.
Okay. 35. Appetitive versus aversive conditioning. This one's going to ask you to pick out an example of one or the other of those. Let's see. 36. Used to study learned fear. What is that technique called? Yep. Conditioned emotional response. Let's see. 37. Eye blink conditioning. Yay. You might want to know how the CR changes in that type of conditioning.
Does this have to do with hypothalamus?
No, it has to do with the actual response that is occurring, and how that basically how the conditioned response is changing. Let's see. Okay, 38, conditioned compensatory response. That one has 2 blanks in it as well. It occurs in response to what? And it prepares the organism for what? And this one's a little different than some of the previous examples we've talked about.
What was the prepare part?
Pairs it, yeah, for what? Oh, another one on conditioned compensatory response. Okay, let's see. Know why drug addicts develop a tolerance? And of course, this is going to be in learning terms, okay? Okay, 40 produces extinction. Know what I have to present over and over without something else?
So I have a question on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's presenting the learned stimulus without the desired stimulus.
So what do we call those as far as
Yeah, that's my question.
CSUS?
So like the cell.
So you present the CS repeatedly without the US following it, and eventually the learning weakens. Yeah. Yeah, you present the bell without the food a bunch of times. Okay.
At least it's
All right, let's see. 41. What does spontaneous recovery tell us? And it has something to do with the conditioned response.
Does it have anything to do with habituation?
No, we're talking about classical conditioning.
Should I possibly revoke the feeling of habituation when I try to?
You can't really unlearn it, right?
Like, go to banana.
Because with spontaneous recovery, what happens is that you go through extinction trials so that the CR basically goes away. You wait like a day, you reintroduce the CS, and all of a sudden that response is back. It's basically saying that it hasn't disappeared. Extinction doesn't lead to it just vanishing. That learning is still hanging around. I mean, I suppose it could be similar to that, yeah. So, all right, where am I at? What is compound conditioning? 42? That's a definition. Yeah. Let's see. 43, blocking shows. Well, what does blocking demonstrate as far as classical conditioning?
Can I say what I think it is?
Go for it.
It demonstrates that classical conditioning occurs only when a cue is both a useful and non-redundant predictor.
Yep.
Do you need to know both of those terms, like useful and non-redundant? Or just like
Well, at least one of them.
useful?
I'm not going to tell you which one, though.
What?
She said that it's the CS has to be useful and non-redundant.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. 44. What is a prediction error? Okay, that's a definition. Oh, this next one's probably going to get a bunch of you. Oh, yeah, there's like 3 that deal with the Rescorla-Wagner model. 45 gives you a bunch of options and asks you which of them is suggested by the Rescorla-Wagner model.
That's the most confusing thing I've just heard in my whole entire life.
Oh, there's models out there that are way more confusing than that, by the way. You thought that was fun.
So it's a one that you select more than one.
No, it's going to give you, A through D, and it's asked you which one of those would be suggested by that model. What's that?
To know what the model's about.
Yeah. Let's see, 46. Make sure you know, according to the model, why blocking occurs. And then 47. So in the model, the expectation of the U.S. is described how? See. Let's see, 48 and 49 deal with latent inhibition. Don't get that confused with latent learning. They are 2 different things. Okay? I'm sorry, I just had to say something, didn't I? Okay. All right, so that first one. Well, what is the consequence of pre-exposing an animal to a stimulus ahead of time? Of pre-exposing the animal to a stimulus. And then the other one brings back good old Rescorla-Wagner and wants to know why latent inhibition is a problem for that model. And then 50 is US versus CS modulation theories. This one's going to give you the name of a model and ask you, is it a US modulation or is it a CS modulation theory? What's that? Well, make sure you know which theory is a US modulation theory and which one is a CS modulation theory. Let's see. Where are we? 51. More on US versus CS modulation theories. Well, this is going to describe a type of learning experiment that we've done or that we've talked about and wants to know, according to, say, a CS modulation theory, why you would see that happen. see, 52. 52 and 53 both deal with timing and conditioning. Make sure you know the difference between delay and trace conditioning. And then the other one, you're going to want to know what the time gap is, what it's called, because there's a term for it. Then 54, 55 deal with taste aversion learning. First one, make sure you know what Garcia and Colling found in their studies.
How do you spell Colling?
Koelling.
What they found.
Yeah, what did they find? And then the next one, also same studies are involved. And it's got 2 blanks. And it has to do with the CSs that were used.
Does it have anything to do with like the gaps you're talking about in time and still learning?
No, this is different. There was a little discussion, I think, that we had about forming associations between certain things and not being able to form them between others.
Like you could form taste aversion with like an hour in between.
No, it doesn't have to do with the timing. It has to do with the US that's provided. So, okay. Holy cow, it's 12:50. Let's see. What's that?
Can we finish this?
I'm going to try. All right, so 56 has different subregions for each type of sensory stimulation. All right, so this is getting into talking about the connections that are involved with the eye blink conditioning. So it wants to know what part of the brain basically has nuclei for different sensory information. What's that?
Can I say what I think it is? Pontine?
Yep, pontine nuclei. Like in the pons of the brain, yes. You know that funny bulge in the brainstem? Yeah, they're in there. Okay, where am I at? 57. Conditioned eye blink response. Okay, so we got a couple of questions here. The first one, where can you stimulate that will get you the conditioned eye blink response?
Is that like the eye pucker?
No, I'm talking about stimulating the brain. What part?
Occipital.
No.
Frontal.
No. It's in the brainstem. It's in the brainstem. It's in that diagram. We're still back in the brainstem. What? No. All right. I had almost finished that discussion at the end of class on Wednesday. I'll go back and review it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay? All right, where are we at? Let's see, 58. That one. Okay, this one's got 2 blanks, and it has to do with lesion studies. And what they found with regard to the interpositus nucleus, and what they found when the cerebellar cortex was lesioned.
Can you please repeat that?
Lesion studies. They want to know what the outcome was of lesioning the interpositus nucleus versus the cerebellar cortex. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's right at the end of class on Wednesday I was talking about. Interpositus. Yes. Yes, I will definitely pull up the diagram at the beginning of class. All right. Let's see. 59. Role of hippocampus in rabbit eye blink conditioning. What happens when you lesion the hippocampus? Make sure you know what the consequence is with regard to that kind of conditioning.
I had two things since I wasn't sure which one it was. Can you verify which one it is?
Maybe.
I have stimulus salience or latent inhibition, like delay. Like delay of latent inhibition. Is that?
Well, it does something to latent inhibition, I'll tell you that much.
Okay. Oh, I got that one.
Let's see. 60. Classical conditioning versus sensitization in aplesia. Know how they are different. Let's see. 61. Classical conditioning in aplesia. This one's a timing one. And, of course, what order? (62) CREB1 inactivation. What happens if it's inactivated? See, 63 classical conditioning and aplesia. Know what kinds of changes are long-term and short-term. See, 64 drug user experiences. Know why they can experience an elevated reaction to the drug when they take it in a new place. And then 65, heroin tolerance in rats. Know which group had the highest mortality rate. Which group had the highest mortality rate?
Is it going to be like labeled as first group, second group, third group, or just like?
What did they experience? What happened to that group? I mean, that's the way it's described. All right.
The CREB1 inactivation. I have what it, like you said, what happened. I have like what doesn't happen, like what it doesn't affect.
That probably works. Okay. Considering the way that the answer's worded. So. Okay. Of course, these are written. That first one's probably going to be the most involved, the neuromechanisms involved in habituation and aplesia. So make sure that you talk about the connections between the neurons, changes in neurotransmitter, and it probably will help if you sort of go through how it's accomplished and what changes occur at the different steps. Which part?
Make sure we talk about the connections between.
I have
All right, in terms of the changes that occur between the neurons, right? You want to be able to describe, for habituation, what happens. So if you know what the stimulus is that's administered, what neurons involved, what changes happen in terms of the sensory neuron talking to the motor neuron, and then with habituation, with repeated presentation of the stimulus, what eventually happens to the neurotransmitter stuff. So, and then let's see. Yes, I'm definitely going to drive you nuts with the US, UR, CS, CR thing. Yeah, so this was basically, it gives an example, and you have to identify, based on the information provided, what each of the 4 of those things are. And then the last one, how would a taste aversion develop in terms of US, UR, CS, and CR? Yeah, that's going to basically give you something that a person develops a taste aversion to and wants to know how that taste aversion would develop in terms of the US, the UR, the CS, the CR.
Okay, so this is like the timing, the gaps that we talked about.
No.
Okay, so that just doesn't come up in the exam.
No.
Okay.
It was just something that, since I'm familiar with that research area, that is kind of an unusual thing. It does not follow like the rules of classical conditioning, because it shouldn't work with a big delay, but it does for that type of conditioning. So, okay.